Eminent Chancellor, on behalf of the Senate of the University of Alberta, it is my privilege to introduce David Takayoshi Suzuki. For the honorary degree of Doctor of Science, our learning community's highest recognition. The son of a Japanese immigrant couple, Dr. Suzuki was interned with his family near Slocum, British Columbia during World War II. His family's dry cleaning business was sold, and they were forced to move to Ontario after the war. But his love for nature was not deterred. Sparked by a shopping trip with his father to purchase a tent, he found he was most at home hiking, fishing, and camping. When it came time to choose his educational path, science just made sense. He earned a PhD in genetics at the University of Chicago in 1961. His journey led him back to Canada and here to the University of Alberta, where he was an assistant professor, before accepting a position at UBC, where he remained for the rest of his academic career. He received the very prestigious EWR Stacey Memorial Fellowship for Outstanding Research Scientist in Canada under the age of 35. His 1976 textbook, titled An Introduction to Genetic Analysis, co-authored with A.J.F. Griffiths, is still the most widely used genetics text in the United States and has been translated into numerous languages. All of this is impressive, but I would venture he is best known to all of you for his passion for science, education, and communication. He founded the CBC's science show Quirks and Quarks, which he hosted for 4 years, a show that continues to this day. And then came the television show, The Nature of Things. From the effects of artificial light on humans, to the secret lives of pigeons, to surviving the teenage brain, The Nature of Things is one of the most successful series in the history of Canadian television. And to many people, certainly in my generation, Quirks and Quarks and The Nature of Things are why we are scientists today. Dr. Suzuki has challenged us to reflect on the impact of our behavior on the natural world that sustains us. In 1990, he established the David Suzuki Foundation to promote resource conservation and environmental protection. He is a companion of the Order of Canada, Canada's highest honor. He is also a recipient of UNESCO's Kalinga Prize for Science, the United Nations Environment Program Medal, and the Right Livelihood Award that is considered the alternative Nobel Prize. This morning, we celebrate his inspiring leadership to future generations of scientists and scholars. And we celebrate his commitment to advancing public education and understanding of science. Eminent Chancellor, with the deepest respect, I present to you David Takayoshi Suzuki.
David Takayoshi Suzuki, in recognition of enduring contributions to public understanding of science and the environment, I desire to confer upon you the honorary degree of Doctor of Science, and to express that we shall continue to be enriched by your wise counsel for many years to come. Congratulations.
Eminent Chancellor, President, representative of the Board of Governors, graduates, friends, and family. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional territory on which we are gathered today, This land on which we congregate is Treaty 6 territory and the traditional homeland of many indigenous peoples and Métis, whose histories, languages, and cultures are still present today, and who continue to influence communities here and throughout North America. Wow, I am so delighted to be back in Edmonton to join your incredible list of recipients of and recognition of their work. To receive this honor from the university where I got my first grown-up job in the genetics department in 1962. Thank you, Alberta and the university, for starting me on my career in science. I only stayed here for a year, but two important things, very important things, happened to me while I was here. In 1962, the year I arrived here, Rachel Carson published Silent Spring, warning of the unintended consequences of pesticides, and that shaped the way I viewed science, the world around us, and my responsibilities. And the university, 1962, had a television program. I don't know what channel, it couldn't have been more than 2 channels in Edmonton at that time. Maybe it was CBC, it was on a Sunday morning, and it was called Your University Speaks. And I was asked to do a show on genetics. I did one, and was asked to do another one, and then another one, and I finally did 8 programs, my first television series. And the producer, Guy Vaughan, said to me, "You have an ability to make science understandable and exciting." And that was a very important insight that I gained. So in my year at the University of Alberta was a very significant one for me. It was here that I began my scientific career in genetics, began my concern about environmental consequences of the way we live, began my realization that television is a very powerful means of communication. Now, if you were to examine a newspaper or a television news program and judge the importance of what we're presented with by how much time is dedicated to each subject, you would quickly conclude that we are preoccupied by politics, by economics, by sports, and by celebrity. Yet the most powerful force shaping our lives and society today is none of these things. It is science. Science when applied by industry, medicine, and the military. As science graduates, some of you will become scientists, doctors, researchers, and professors, but all of you are scientifically literate, which is all of society today should be, to deal with the major issues that will confront you in the coming years. A university is a community of scholars, artists, scientists, and dreamers exploring the cutting edge of human thought and creativity. To society, these ideas are often perceived as a threat to the status quo. Indeed, it's not an accident that revolutionary change often starts in universities. But to enable people to freely explore these edges, our society, in its wisdom, granted tenure. I hope, as students here at this great university, you have taken advantage to explore the avenues of human inventiveness and opened your mind to possibilities and new ways of seeing the world. This is urgent because scientists now recognize that human beings have suddenly become a tectonic force on the planet. Our numbers, our technology, our consumption, and our global economy have exploded to such an extent that we are now the main factor shaping and altering the physical, chemical, and biological properties of the planet on a geological scale. That's why scientists now call this the Anthropocene epoch, the age of human beings. There has never been a species with such power before. And we have no experience then to guide us. So we have to find ways of living that do not undermine the very things that keep us alive. 4 years ago, I received a call from the CEO of one of the largest companies in the oil sands of Alberta. "Can I come and talk to you?" he asked. To which I answered, "Of course. I don't believe in fighting because we all have to be winners." The next day, he showed up at my door, and I thanked him profusely and asked him to do me one favor, to leave his identity as the CEO of a corporation outside so I could meet him as one human being with another. His body language told me he wasn't very comfortable with this, but to his credit, he came in because he was a decent man. I thanked him and told him I knew this wasn't what he was expecting, so I explained that I couldn't see the point of debating or negotiating about energy or pollution before we both agreed on our common needs that had to be the platform of discussion of further issues. I knew he was uncomfortable because he had come to meet me as the executive of an oil company. "Mr. CEO," I began, "we live in a world that is shaped and constrained by laws of nature. They're fixed. We can't change them, so we have to live within them. Physics informs us that we cannot build a rocket that will travel faster than the speed of light. The law of gravity tells us if I trip on these stairs, I'm going to hit my head on the floor. And the first and second laws of thermodynamics tell us that we cannot build a perpetual motion machine. Those are laws of physics, and we live within them. In chemistry, it's the same. The atomic properties of the elements dictate their freezing points, their melting points, their boiling points, their reaction rates and diffusion constants that determine what we can and cannot make in a test tube. That's chemistry. And biology informs us that every species of animal and plant has a maximum number that can be maintained sustainably, and that is determined by the carrying capacity of an ecosystem or a habitat. The biosphere is our habitat, and based on our numbers and consumptive demands, we are already beyond its carrying capacity. By using up our basic biological capital that should be there for future generations, we are maintaining the sense that everything's okay. And then I told him, we are animals. And as animals, our greatest need is a breath of air. 3 minutes of air, 3 minutes without air, we die. Forced to breathe polluted air, we sicken. So I ask you, surely clean air should be our greatest need and responsibility to protect, a sacred responsibility. And I went on then and described how each of us is made of water. 60 to 70% of our bodies by weight is water. If we don't have water for 4 to 6 days, we die. Forced to drink contaminated water, we sicken. So clean water, like clean air, is a sacred responsibility to protect. Without food, after 4 to 6 weeks, we will die. And most of our food comes from the soil, so clean soil and food should be a sacred responsibility. And every bit of the energy in our bodies that we need to move and work and grow and reproduce, and every bit of the energy that we release by burning in our fuels, comes from photosynthesis. So that should also, in the oceans and on land, should be protected. These are the fundamental needs of all human beings and should be the foundation of the way that we live and base our lives. Other things, borders we draw around our property, our cities, our provinces, our countries, are human constructs. So are capitalism, the economy, politics, corporations, the market. These are not forces of nature. We invented them, and they are the only things that we can change. We can't change nature. So I concluded, Mr. CEO, if you will shake hands with me In agreement with what I have just said, I promise I will do everything I can to help you and your company. Of course, he couldn't or wouldn't shake hands because he came as the CEO of a corporation. And if he were to go back to his shareholders and report, I had a discussion with Suzuki, he's right. Whatever we do, we cannot harm the air, the water, or the soil. He would be fired in a flash because that is not his job. So here is the dilemma. We have created concepts and structures of government and business that we then try to force nature to conform to, rather than shaping our creations to fit the needs of nature on which we are utterly dependent. And that's why we have disputes over many things, because we haven't started from a position of agreement on what we need and must protect. In the Anthropocene epoch, we have become the dominant animal on the planet, and we have to find a way of living in balance with the elements that keep us alive and healthy. Your university education is part of your preparation to prepare for the challenges ahead. It's a daunting task, but I believe humanity's success has been in large measure the ability to look ahead, to see the dangers and the opportunities, and then act now to avoid those dangers and exploit those opportunities in the future. Foresight is our great gift, and you are a part of society's foresight today. You're trained in science to assess the best information we have available about what the state of the planet is, and to look ahead with your supercomputers and see where we are going, so that now you are equipped to help shape our way into the future. Congratulations on reaching this stage in your lives, and I wish you all the best, and gazing out at you, watching you as you cross this stage, I am filled with hope and optimism that you are prepared to lead us, to help us as we embark on the next most important stage of your lives. Congratulations.